Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Flack-Wetherald. If you are watching this on LinkedIn Live or Facebook Live, hello. If you are watching the replay later on YouTube or either of these platforms, hello to you too. I'm Andrea Flack-Wetherald, and every week I do this Lunch and Breathe installment, a new episode every week, Monday at noon. And the goal is to just take a moment for mindfulness, get our weeks started off on a more positive, grounded foot, and then just really let that groundedness kind of breathe new life into whatever it is that we're up to each week. And I have been absolutely champing at the bit to do this one because my family just had a very exciting milestone yesterday. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of our children being officially adopted. So we are a FOST adopt family, which means that unlike private adoption where you kind of wait, you get matched with a child or children, and then you do some visits and then you're together, you legally adopt them shortly thereafter. Unlike that, a FOST adopt family comes together by way of what's called an emergency shelter placement. And so this is when children are removed instantly from an unsafe situation and then placed into a foster home with the intention of supporting birth family until they are able to be ultimately placed back with their family, because of course that's the ideal outcome. It's ideal for families to be able to stay together. So that's our story. There is so much to it. And I know many of you were on this journey with me, and thank you for that. Your support was critical to our family while we were navigating some of the hardest chapters of this. So our children, sadly, in some ways, were not able to be reunified with their birth family, and we adopted them 1 year ago yesterday. So the reason why I feel comfortable saying that yesterday is a happy day is that the day in which it's decided that children will not go back to their birth family is not the same day as adoption day. So we had our day to grieve. We had our day to hold space for the tragedy of what that is. And then adoption day collectively, even to the children, feels like a happy day, a day of permanence, a day of closure, a day of having an answer for the future. So that's a very happy day. But what I wanted to share with you today are 8 strategies that I learned in the course of being a foster parent. So these are 8 things that I learned that helped me be able to get through this incredibly difficult time. So for 2.5 years, it was not clear at all if we would be able to adopt the children. For 2.5 years, it was absolute grueling uncertainty. It was heartache of hearing the things that they had been through as they would continue to disclose new things to us. It was one update about like, okay, this is what's going to happen. Oh, never mind, plan changed. Now it's this. Maybe this is sounding familiar to some of you, even if you are not foster parents. I have felt a lot of similarities between what we're going through now and what it was like in foster care. So for 2.5 years, it's the constant uncertainty. It's the being told one thing and then, oh, now the plan has changed to this. At one point, we almost lost them. They were about to be reunified, and I don't want to share their story in a way that's not appropriate, so I won't get into all of the details, but it was not a safe situation. It would not have been ideal for them, and therefore it was heartbreaking for us. And just very scary. Also, we had been a family for a year. So if you can imagine having a child for a year and then losing them and the level of grief that you would be feeling, that's where we're at. So there were some very dark, very uncertain, very difficult days in foster care. And so what I want to share with you are some of the things that I learned to help me get through that in a way where I was truly taking care of myself emotionally, spiritually, professionally, physically, to get on the other side of this in a way where I can be healthy and intact. And I think that you'll find, if you are listening, that these are very applicable to what we're going through right now, pandemic-wise, election year-wise, the scope. I don't even know how to like fully encapsulate everything that 2020 is, but there's of course a lot of heartache, a lot of tumult, a lot of trauma, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. So what can we be doing to weather 2020 in a way where we are participating in creating more good in the world, and also staying emotionally, spiritually, physically, professionally, etc., intact? So we're going to start with 5 things that are kind of tactical, implementable like right now. And then the last 3 things are a little bit more spiritual. So the first thing is you should definitely drink away your problems, but do it with water. Okay. So I am not a fan anymore of joking about using alcohol or drinking to cope with problems. I used to sort of make those jokes too, but we have a rule in our home, and we really had a good time to practice that during the most uncertain portions of foster care, that we do not drink, not even one, if we are sad or angry. Those are not the times to drink. That is not going to help you. That is going to make you feel worse. So that's number 1. Number 2 is therapy. Let's normalize therapy. Our children needed therapy to process some of their trauma, some of their special needs even, so physical and emotional therapies. And I needed therapy because compassion fatigue is a real thing and secondary trauma is a real thing. So make sure that if you are somebody who, like me, had been kind of saying, oh, of course, therapy, I would never judge anyone for going to therapy. I think therapy is great. But then when it comes time for you to put your calendar where your mouth is, or your money where your mouth is, and actually sign up, actually like do the work of getting a therapist, then it can be easy to procrastinate, or kind of feel like, you know, I hear people say all the time, weeding is better than therapy, or whatever is better than therapy. Weeding came to mind for me because my arms are sore right now. I did a bunch of weeding yesterday. But therapy is different than things that make you feel better. There's nothing wrong with those things. But therapy is a different thing than that. Therapy is about having a professional help you actually do better, actually be better in your heart. It's not the same as, you know, like doing a thing that makes you feel better in one instant. Number 3, advanced gratitude journaling. So what I mean is not like extremely good. That's not what I mean by advanced. I mean by focusing on what you want at the end of this. Focus on that and then write about how grateful you are for that thing. And so there's 2 pieces to this because I want you to hear 2 sides of this. First of all is the advanced gratitude piece. And just in some ways, I don't want to make this overly woo-woo if that's not where you are, but like, I do believe that there's power in claiming something ahead of time and in deciding like, I'm going to be grateful in advance because I know that something beautiful is on the other side of this. And I'm going to be claiming that and thinking about that and focusing on that and working towards that with all of my inside power. Okay. So I do believe that there's a lot of power in that. But secondly, writing takes longer than thinking. So the act of actually taking time to write it down in a journal. I have a special journal that I only use for this purpose. And so it's not cluttered up with like grocery lists and, you know, other stuff. I'm that kind of person that has a tendency to like find any old piece of paper and write out something on it. But I always protect this journal. But writing takes longer than thinking. And there's something really helpful that happens in that extra time of just slowing down and really writing down. I am so grateful that the children are healthy and happy and safe forever. I am so grateful for the miracle that I've seen happen of healing for their birth family as well. I am so grateful for the fact that one person's joy and healing does not come at the expense of somebody else's suffering. Life doesn't have to be this seesaw where in order for one person to get what they need, it's somehow scooping out of somebody else's opportunity pool. That's not how it works. There is enough for everyone. There's enough healing and joy for everyone. So I just write this over and over and over. And if we had 5,000 hours for me to be on here, which is not what anybody wants, but if we had so much more time, and I will in a future post share more about some of the incredible healing that we've seen in their birth families' lives. It's making me feel a little bit emotional right now. And the joy that we've had in the last year of reconnecting with birth mom for the first time, and just getting to see the way that it is true that our ability to adopt these children did not mean that this person lost children out of her life forever. And, you know, it wasn't like that. Even though it seems like this would be like there's a winner and a loser, we collectively, we feel like co-moms, like we feel like a bigger family, okay? Like amazing things do happen when you decide, I'm going to focus on what I want. I'm not going to focus on what's awful. I'm going to focus on what I want. I'm going to channel all of my energy, all of my inside power onto what I want to see, not what I'm afraid of, okay? Number 4 is police the input. So this is what I mean. I don't just mean, there's a lot to say about this. I'm trying not to talk forever. Policing the input to me, for example, means choosing to watch Marie Kondo instead of true crime. And I want you to understand what a big deal that is for me, because I love true crime, as everyone who has ever met me at like a networking event or whatever has known about me. It's like one of my favorite things to just casually chat about. I love true crime, but what I realized is that the way that that makes me feel when I'm filling my brain with other people's tragedy, other people's death, other people's brutalization, other people's anxiety and fear, and I'm putting that in my brain when I'm already in the middle of a hurricane in my own real life, that is not helping me. It is not helping me. But because I was feeling so overwhelmed, because at one point, there were people in the children's birth family making physical threats against my husband and I. And so we felt this anxiety, we felt this fear, we were exposed to the first time for the fact that like organized crime exists in Pittsburgh. Like this world that we had never known about was all of a sudden thrust into our lives. And so we felt like a match, like this was what was on our brains. So of course we thought of that when we're scrolling through Netflix, figuring out what are we gonna watch, right? But does that help me focus on what I want? No, it doesn't. So choosing not to just watch what feels good in that moment, but instead to be like, I'm going to watch Queer Eye. I'm going to watch Marie Kondo. I'm going to watch something that makes me, that re-energizes me for doing beautiful work in the world and being a loving and empathetic person. That was extremely helpful to me. So, okay, I see a question came through. Is this going to be a recurring series of live streams? Thank you for that question. Yes. Every Monday at noon, I do one of these. It's called Lunch and Breathe. It's about mindfulness and just kind of taking a moment to reground in positivity and good things. Every Monday at noon, take a little moment to breathe and recenter. Thank you for that question, and thank you for being here. Okay, so I'm going to keep going because number 5 is something that gave me chills when I thought of it as I was preparing this content and I was reflecting on, you know, what was it that I did in a practical sense during the most difficult parts of foster care that helped me get through this in a way that was healthy, helped me, you know, not just be like, I'm a rock, I can't be affected by tragedy. Like, of course, part of empathy is like, you know, of course I'm affected by seeing the way that my children are hurting when they come back from visits and they're so confused and there's no good answers. And, oh, it's just gut-wrenching. There are questions a child can ask you and things a child can tell you that just feel like your heart is getting scooped out with a melon baller. And that's just what it is. There are things that are just completely unfair and unjust and horrible and traumatic. And it would be silly for me to try to be like, I'm just zen about tragedy. Doesn't bother me. I'm unaffected. Look how healthy I am. That's called numbing, and that's not healthy. So as I've been thinking about, you know, how did I get through this? Like, what were the things that when I did it well, because certainly I did not always do it well, but when I was doing well, what was I doing? And this number 5 kind of, it just gave me chills to remember. So number 5 is stop commiserating, start conspiring. So commiserating is what you do when all you talk about is the drama. All you talk about is the trauma. All you talk about are the shared experiences of horrific things. And sometimes our foster family support group became that. There were times in the hardest parts where I was like, I can't do that right now because I just cannot. It does not serve my purposes or my family's purposes for us to just all share stories of hopelessness. That does not help me, right? But when we could shift from commiserating, co together, Miserable ating is what that word sounds like and means, right? Commiserating. When we could shift away from that to conspiring, together, spire, that S-P-I-R, that Latin root means breathe. Isn't that amazing? That inspire, it's about breath, together, breathing, right? When we do that together, and it's like, what can we do better? What is it within our sphere of influence to do well together? And when the conversation shifted to that, almost instant relief. Does that erase the pain? No, of course not. But nothing does. Nothing does. So is it not a win to feel better and then be participating in creating more good things in the world? Of course that's a win. So stop commiserating, start conspiring. And I don't know what you're dealing with right now. We are all dealing with something, whether it's worry about job loss, whether it's, maybe your company's had a lot of layoffs. I know that in the work that I do, lots of my clients or pre-clients / people in my general sphere who, share with me what's going on at work have shared with me that they've had lots of layoffs, and it's heartbreaking. Like, these leaders they care so much, and it's heartbreaking to have to do that, or maybe it's something else. Maybe you know somebody that's very sick. Maybe you've lost somebody. Maybe there's so many things. I won't list them because I don't want to be a part of the commiserating. But whatever your situation is right now, I really invite you to notice if you are spending a lot of time in your echo chamber sharing stories of misery and trauma that make everybody leave feeling worse and feeling hopeless. What good is that? We call it venting. We pretend like, it's support. But really what we did was fan each other's hopeless flames. We don't want to do that. So really ask yourself, what am I participating in? Am I commiserating or am I conspiring? Conspire. It feels so much better. Okay, so those are the first 5 things that hopefully feel pretty tactical to you, like things that you can tell if you're doing them or not. The next 3 things are like a little deeper level. So the first one is know the difference between self-care and self-medication. So there are lots of things that people do to self-medicate that are socially acceptable. So most of the time people identify, physical self-harm or drinking or drug abuse. We identify those things as clearly harmful. But there are other things, especially if you can get away with it, that are self-medication that are not helping you. And it's really easy to teeter on that line and kind of trick yourself. For example, binge watching stuff on Netflix. For example, eating Girl Scout cookies for lunch. For example, going to support groups that just feed your sense of this is hopeless, nothing will make me feel better again, So those were some things from my life. Nobody was going to tell me, as someone who has a social work degree and license, someone who is an outwardly seeming healthy adult. I try to be healthy. I don't feel like I'm faking it, but of course nobody is perfect. No one is going to tell me, hey, maybe lay off the Girl Scout cookies. I have a slender physique, so it's easy to get away with that. Do you see what I'm saying? But the invitation here is notice that you don't want a level of life that you're getting away with. You don't want to just do stuff because you can justify it and because no one is going to call bullshit. That's not what you want. That's not what creates freedom and joy and growth, right? Really what's going to do that for you is actual self-care. So maybe that's meditation. Maybe that's learning a new thing. Sometimes the best way to get out of a funk is by replacing fear or hopelessness with curiosity. Kyle and I sometimes would just watch woodworking videos, and that somehow was so helpful to me. I've not done any woodworking, but this idea of put things in my brain that just tickle that inspiration part. There's that word, S-P-I-R, spire again. Breathe, breath, it just gives you breath to do things like that. So just notice that. What is the difference for me? Not what will other people see and hold me accountable. What do I know in my deepest, deepest truth is the difference between self-medicating and real self-care, okay? Number 2, be honest about what you need. Say when you need solutions or when you just need to know that you're not alone. So this is one thing I didn't always do well. And I am an achiever. I like to be active. I'm a thing doer. And sometimes just getting quiet and holding space for how difficult something is hard for me because it doesn't feel like doing something. It doesn't feel like accomplishing something. This is the reason why before I really started practicing mindfulness, like every day, when it was like, I know what it is, and so therefore I think I'm doing it, versus like, are you practicing it in a meaningful way? That's what mindfulness is. A practice, not just a word that you know. Before that, I couldn't even like read a book because I would literally be sitting there reading, and in my brain is like this never-ending list of things I feel like I should be doing right now. So what I learned is that it is very important for me to not constantly be asking for advice from the kids' attorneys, from our social workers, from other foster families. Instead of saying, I'm sad right now. I am really sad that I might lose my children. I love them so much. I love them so much, and we have become a family, and I might lose them in such a way, like I'll tell you the visual, and this might be like visceral for some of you, so I'll just give you that warning ahead of time. But for me, I remember one time we stayed overnight at my mom's house, and Cooper, our son, who's the youngest one, he was about 2, a little over 2 at this time. And in the night, he woke up. And he left the room where he was sleeping and he was trying to find me and he couldn't find me. And he was standing in the hallway screaming this blood-curdling, just gut-wrenching scream because he did not know where I was. And I cannot even begin to tell you what that did to me because I knew I might lose them. I might lose these children. And that means that if they go back to a home where they've never been, they're not getting reunified. The family was struggling with homelessness before. So they are getting reunified to a place where they've never been with a person that for a lot of complicated reasons, they did not remember very well. They will wake up in the night. My baby will wake up in the night and he will be screaming for me and crying for me, and I won't be able to come. I won't be able to jump out of my bed when I hear him and run to him and scoop him up and be like, Cooper, I love you so much, buddy. I'm right here. Mommy is right here. I can't do that, right? So for me, when we were in the darkest chapters and we were counting down the days until we had to pack up all their little things and send them on their way into the unknown, I remember being at a foster family support group and sharing this, and I'm getting emotional right now just remembering it. I just broke down crying at this foster family support group and was like, I hate this. I hate foster care so much. I hate it so much. Like, I just was like devastated. Like, I am going to have to pack all their little things and send them on their way. And what will that feel like? Like, my brain was so stuck on like, what is it going to be like to wake up in my quiet, empty house the next day? Like, you guys, I can't, it was awful. It was awful. So I'm just broken down in this support group. And the leader of the support group, who's a dear friend of mine, by the way, says, Andy, if that happens, in time, you will heal. The children's hearts will heal. Yours will heal. And she's getting into like, here are some things that other people have done post-reunification. I dropped the F-bomb in that support group because I was like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that they're going to heal and I'm going to heal. I'm going to be sad forever if these kids leave because that sadness is somehow connection to them still. So the reason I share this story is that what I needed to say in that moment was, I can't do problem solving. I'm not in action stage right now. I can't. I cannot take action. I need to cry. And I need to know that when I get to the morning after these children are gone, that there's going to be, wow, this is so emotional. I was not expecting this. I need to know that I'm not going to be alone in that moment. And that's what I needed to say. So if you are in a situation where this is resonating with you in some way, what I hope you realize is, if you're like me and you're a doer and you are an accomplisher and you are a person that is counted on in many circles for plans and backup plans and charts and that's who you are, there are moments in 2020 right now where you need to be comfortable saying, guys, I can't right now. Like, I am beyond my capacity to do things right now. I just need to know that I'm not alone. This is how I'm feeling. I'm sad. Please, nobody tell me about the value of joining a new Zumba class when I'm grieving. Like, I can't right now. I just need to be sad, right? So get comfortable saying what you really need. That level of vulnerability is hard, but guys, it's so healthy. Like, it is so healthy to be able to connect with someone in a real way and not need to have this like vibe, for lack of a better word, but like this presentation of yourself, you know, that says, like, I remember really wanting to be good at foster care. Like, I would kind of say that to myself. I wanted to be good at foster care. And what I didn't understand is, like, nobody is good at this. Like, it's just hard. And like, if there is such a thing as being good at foster care, all that means is you're taking care of yourself and you're taking care of these kids. And that's it. It's not a thing that you can win at, right? There's no competition. So that's one really important thing, is notice the times when you don't need advice, when you just need sympathy. Sometimes you don't need solutions. You just need sympathy. You just need empathy. You just need people to be in your corner, and say that. Just be comfortable saying that. Okay, number 3, the final of our 8 things here, is that what I learned to do is tap into a deeper understanding of how the world works. So that might sound woo-woo. Here's what I mean by that. First of all, the deepest truth is that I am one human person on this planet, and my children, I do not own them. They are not mine. They are not possessions to be had. They are other human souls with whom I have the privilege of being connected. And it is the same for their birth family. They are human people. They are human people. And for a time, it seemed like some of the people in their family were doing the work of healing, were really working their case plans. And I remember one time we had just come back from church and we sang the song called "Lord, Make Us Instruments of Your Peace." And no matter what you believe, I hope that if you're curious about this, it's the words of the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. And I super encourage you to Google it, because it's just such a beautiful prayer, regardless of what you believe. Being instruments of your peace, the words say, where there is injury, we will never judge. Where there is hatred, we will show love. Where there is striving, we will speak your peace to the millions crying for release. And to me, I was like, that's who their birth parents are. They are people crying for release from addiction, from cyclical poverty, from cyclical violence, inherited family trauma. They're crying for release. I can't root against them. I can't, in good conscience, go to church and say these words and believe them and be someone that's like, dude, more than anything on this earth, I want to be a light. I want my work. I want everything about my work. If you follow my work, hopefully you've seen on my website, the Mindful Improv Manifesto. And I just hope you know the sincerity with which I wrote those words. Like, I want to be a light on this earth, and I want my work to be a joyful way to bring people together and help them grow as teams, as individual people, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, I don't know how to be that person and say those things. And then in this moment, when it's my heart on the line, when it's me that might get heartbroken, then I'm going to be like, no, there's pretty much only one right answer, and it's my favor, right? Like, I can't do that. I cannot root against healing just because that healing means that, like, I am going to have to go through this heartbreaking thing of returning these children, you know, and not being with them, not being their mom like I have been for the last year. And if you remember earlier, I talked about how the deepest truth is that the world is not this seesaw where one person's blessing requires another person's suffering. That's not how it works. And so for me, tapping into that deeper understanding was a real source of peace, a real source of, in the faith tradition that I come from, we call it the peace that passes understanding. Like, when you get to that place where it's like, I no longer understand or have solutions, but there is this deeper well of resilience and peace. That's what I'm talking about right now. So part one of that is root for big picture good over little picture sadness, because sometimes sad situations are kind of like a sweater that you never would have picked out for yourself. But once it's off the hanger and you actually have it on and you're living it, you're like, you know what? I can see where there are gifts in this situation. You can see that there is beauty anyway. And then number two is that it is safe to trust the ensemble. So if you follow my work at all, you've heard me use these words before, the ensemble. That means that you're not the only improviser. All life is, like our collective reality, if there is such a thing. It feels like more often than not these days, I'm like, Dad, it legitimately seems like some people experience a different reality, like a fact. Well, we don't need to get into that. I think we can all agree that what the truth means is something that has become extremely unclear in the last 4 years. But what I learned through foster care that was very helpful to me is that it is safe to trust the ensemble. So this shared thing that we're doing together of life is a bunch of improvisers. You are an improviser. I am an improviser. Your mom is an improviser. The person that you most disagree with is an improviser. We are all improvisers, and we're all building this experience together. Your contributions, their contributions, the onus is on all of us to build something that we're proud of. So first of all, I cannot help myself but get on this little tangent, which says, so if you're spewing hate at all, regardless of whether or not you're spewing hate in a direction that says like, things are so unjust and unfair, we want something better. Hate doesn't get us to love. Love gets us to love, right? So our contributions, everyone's contributions, we're all responsible for what we're seeing. So if you're seeing a bunch of hate around you, that's a good time to check yourself. But how I felt for our purposes for this conversation, how can we be resilient in 2020? It is safe to trust the ensemble. What does that mean to you? What that means is that there's going to be times when you can't be the one having the debate. You're just done for the day. And it's not all on your shoulders. Every debate is not on your shoulders. It's just not. And how I saw this in foster care was that there was one hearing in particular that we're coming up on. And typically what would happen is that before the hearings, it was not my job, but the unwritten responsibility of a foster parent is that like all these different entities and agencies don't really talk to each other very well. And I'm not trying to throw shade anywhere. They are good people who are overworked. They have a million things on their plate. There's no shade here. It's just the reality is that if you want for the social worker and the attorney and the guardian ad litem and all these people, if you want them to be on the same page, you got to be disseminating the notes. That's kind of like your job. And so normally I would be like relaying to everyone, this is what's been going on in the case. This is what's going on with the kids. And there was one hearing where I had to call CYF to do a report of something pretty horrible that our daughter had reported to me. And I was just like immobilized, completely immobilized. Like I was like, I cannot call all of these people. I cannot make my bullet pointed list of things. I don't know if I can even show up at the hearing. Like, I just cannot do that right now. I don't think that I'm going to make it better by showing up at the courthouse. Like, that does not feel like what I can do right now. You don't have to be a martyr. You can trust the ensemble. I said that to our caseworker. And guess what? Someone else was able to take the baton. And it worked out just fine. There are a million examples of how this pertains in a workplace situation. And, I feel like I wouldn't even begin to tell you how many times I've said to clients that it is safe to do your part, not everyone's part. It is safe. Just hear that. It is safe for you to do your part, not everyone's part. Okay. So that means whatever it means to you. Do you need to start leaving at 5, like checking out on Slack, being like, I'm done working now because it's the end of my day? Instead of telling yourself the story like, if I won't do it, it won't get done. If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Don't lean into that story of you can't trust other people, because you find what you look for. So if you look for evidence of that, you're going to find it. And it's probably going to be your fault that you found it because you were looking for it. Look for evidence that you can trust your scene partners and you'll find it. Your scene partners can't surprise you if you don't give them the opportunity. I'm a type A person and I tend to just like plans on plans, and I really like to have control. Improv is like immersion therapy for me. I think that's why I love it so much, and I miss it so much right now. It's like immersion therapy for me. And, you know, I have really needed to learn the value of noticing when I'm not needed on stage, the value of really listening to other people's input and suggestions. Anyhow, there's a lot to say. And if you follow my work, you've heard me say it all. And I run the risk right now of launching into another 30 minutes of things we can learn from improv. And I won't do that to you. My goal today has been to share with you an encouraging word and to make sure you know that it is possible to be impacted by what is happening around us and to have healthy empathy, to have healthy grieving the times that we are directly affected. It is possible to do that without appropriating trauma, taking on more than your share of somebody else's experience, because you can't forgive someone else's hurt, right? So when we take on other people's hurt, we're not seeing it three-dimensionally. Everyone has the opportunity in their own life to see the beauty that comes from their own challenges, to see the strength that they find in themselves, to see the perseverance, to feel the support of their community rallying around them in times of grief. When you are the one at the epicenter of a hurricane, you get to feel that. You get to claim that joy and strength and empowerment. When you're taking on someone else's hurricane, you can't really do that, right? You don't get to feel the way that they feel support, etc. So when we take on other people's trauma, it's very hard to stay afloat and to participate in what we actually ultimately want to achieve anyway. So my purpose today has been to share with you that, first of all, it is possible to be resilient. It is possible to handle difficult things in a healthy way. It's been my goal to give you some very kind of like actionable things, and also some more of the thinkier things that just take time to marinate and really have an impact over time. Like this idea that one person's blessing doesn't come at the expense of someone else's suffering. That idea, when you really think about it, is absolutely life-changing, but it just takes some time to like sit with it and let it marinate. Ultimately, I just want to send so much love to every person that is watching this. Really, we are doing a hard thing together right now. We're doing a really hard thing together. People are being more vulnerable, more courageous than ever. They're needing to find a way to be resilient, you know, right now. And that's what I want to be about, is just encouraging that resilience. So I hope this was meaningful. I will post more later about just adoption and how beautiful and wonderful this last year has been. But in the meantime, breathe, spire. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I've only ever seen that word written. I've never heard it pronounced, and I don't know any Latin. But breathe, do things that are breathing oriented, conspire, inspire. All right, so much love, so much positivity to all of you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments. I'll come back in and respond to these. Sending so much positivity your way, and definitely mark your calendars every Monday at noon for Lunch and Breathe. Some of them are much shorter than this one. I had a lot on my heart today. But I will see you guys next Monday. Bye.